The clock ticked toward midnight in the nearly empty radio station. Claire sat alone in the dimly lit studio, the soft hum of static filling the air. She checked the switchboard, no calls, just like every night. It was her final shift before the station shut down permanently. After 20 years of midnight broadcasts, it all ended tonight. She leaned into the microphone. "This is Claire Grayson, signing off for the last time. Thanks for sticking with me all these years. It's been a pleasure, and I hope you'll join me." Her words were interrupted by a harsh, grating noise from the speakers, like nails on a chalkboard. Claire recoiled and yanked off her headphones. The interference wasn't unusual for the aging equipment, but something about the sound set her nerves on edge. Suddenly, the switchboard lit up with a single call. Claire frowned. Nobody ever called this late anymore. She hesitated, then picked up the receiver. "Hello, you're live on the air. Who's calling?" For a moment there was silence. Then a deep, garbled voice crackled through the line. "You shouldn't have stayed." A chill ran down her spine. "Excuse me?" The voice distorted, as though it was coming from another time, another place. "We've been waiting." Claire's hand tightened around the receiver. "Is this a prank? Because if it is, it's not funny." The voice faded into static. The lights in the studio flickered, then dimmed. Claire glanced at the clock. 11:58 p.m. 2 minutes until the station signed off forever. Her heart pounded. She was alone in the building, and the nearest town was miles away. She shook off the feeling of unease and hung up the phone. Just as she reached for the microphone again, the switchboard lit up with another call. She answered hesitantly. "Hello?" This time there was no voice, just static. Then, faintly beneath the crackling, she heard what sounded like her own voice echoing back at her. "Thank you for tuning in. I'll see you all tomorrow night." Her blood ran cold. It was a recording of her voice from years ago. How could someone be playing that now? The voice on the line continued. "Tomorrow night, tomorrow night." The words repeated over and over, growing distorted until they dissolved into a long, agonized wail. The lights flickered again. The air in the room grew thick, oppressive. Claire stood up, backing away from the console. She turned to leave the studio, but the door slammed shut before she could reach it. Her breathing quickened. She pounded on the door, but it wouldn't budge. The clock on the wall clicked to 11:59. Behind her, the static on the speakers grew louder, filling the room. Claire covered her ears, but through the noise, she could hear voices, many voices, whispering her name, calling out to her from the airwaves. "Clary!" She spun around to face the console. On the monitor, the audio levels spiked as the whispers grew louder, closer. She ran to the window overlooking the parking lot. It was pitch black outside, no streetlights, no moonlight, nothing but darkness. Then in the distance, she saw figures emerging, slowly moving toward the building. Dozens of them, their shapes barely discernible, but their eyes, glowing white, staring up at her. Claire stumbled back. The clock hit midnight. A sharp, deafening tone pierced the room, and the voices screamed in unison. "We're here!" The speakers exploded with noise, a cacophony of wailing, screeching, and static. The room shook, the equipment sparked. Claire screamed as the door behind her creaked open on its own. In the hallway, darkness. A figure stepped into the doorway, its form barely visible, but its glowing eyes fixed on her. "We've been waiting for your last broadcast." The room plunged into silence. The lights flickered one last time, and then everything went dark. The next morning, the police arrived at the station to investigate the sudden outage. They found the studio empty, the equipment fried. There was no sign of Claire Grayson. The last thing recorded was her voice, echoing through the static. "I'll see you all tomorrow night." To this day, some say they can hear Claire's voice at midnight on the old station frequency, still calling out through the static, waiting for her final broadcast.